4x4 Club Challenge is brought to you by Bridgestone. This is round 4 of the 2014 Bridgestone 4x4 Club Challenge, and this event is hosted by the Isuzu Off-Road Club of SA. Based at the Leeuwenkloof and ADA facilities west of Pretoria, the event attracted a variety of Isuzu 4x4s, from run-of-the-mill KB bakkies to big troopers to the very popular Isuzu Frontier. To add some extra spice to the event, a few guest competitors also pitched up. This included a smarty box of Suzukis and Jeeps, manned by experienced 4x4 crews. Traditionally though, the short wheelbase Frontiers are pretty awesome in the rough, so the Suzukis and Jeeps had their work cut out for them if they were to upset the apple cart. And so after the scrutineering, and without further ado, let's get into the action with the Isuzu Off-Road Club. This is obstacle 1, and it's an unusual one. The competitors have to drive their 4x4 up the narrow seesaw, and when they get to the tilting point, they have to try and balance the seesaw for 3 seconds before it touches down again. 3 seconds sounds like a short time, but it's an eternity if you have to try and balance a 4x4 on a narrow seesaw. The first victims are Barry and Jaco van der Lith in an imported Frontier. Teams have 2 options here. Because it's quite tricky, teams who decide not to attempt the balancing act will get 25 points, done and dusted. But if the teams decide to go for it and don't manage the balancing act, they get 0 points. Barry and Jaco are well on their way, and it starts tipping. Hold on! That was too close to call. Did the Van der Liths make it or not?
Net gemaakt.
Crikey, they did! So that's 100 points in the bank. Was that nice, Barry?
It was quite nice, small trick to it. Bit of a handbrake use in between. I think it's not your vehicle, but it's nice. Quite challenging.
Oh, that's nice, Barry. Here are our next customers, Robert and Leeuwenkloof Hale, in a big and wide Isuzu Trooper. Leeuwenkloof is behind the wheel today, and the Hales decide to go big or go home. Leeuwenkloof employs just a fraction too little momentum to get up on the seesaw, but a bit more right foot sorts it out easily enough. Now just to find the perfect balancing point. She stops a bit early and has to take off again. And no. They just missed the 3 seconds. Oh well, nice try, Leeuwenkloof. Next up is the all-lady crew of Marlene Muller and Mary Ann Badenhorst in an Isuzu KB single cab. After inspecting the seesaw thingamabob, Marlene decides to not take the seesaw, but the points.
No, we're not going to do this. We'll try the next one. See you on the skit band.
This is obstacle 2, a speed test on the ADA Academy's gravel skid pan, where the 4x4s have to complete a gymkhana test. And here's our lady-only team again, walking the route. Remember, they took the safe option at the first obstacle, so let's see if they will do the same in this test. Oh yes, and 1 dead cone equals 25 points lost, so best avoid those 2. Well done, ladies. The Red Isuzu scored a solid 70 points out of 100. This is Albert and Barondine Crevet in a double cab KB. And that's young Albert Jr. strapped into the back seat. Albert Jr. is quite excited about it all. Isuzu deftly makes its way through the obstacle. Albert creates his very own dust storm. Don't worry, Albert Jr., I would also have been screaming if I was a passenger. The hasty double cab scores 65 points. Rory and Glenn Lester are next, in another KB double cab. Looking at the sparkle in Glenn's eye, I suspect another dust storm is on the way. The Lesters seem to start sedately enough, calm and reasonably collected. But then Glenn decides to dig a bit deeper. He lets rip and creates some more dust clouds. Oh, and he bags 70 points for his trouble.
Hey, that was good fun.
Thank you very much.
Here are Gareth Gonzalez and Peter van Niekerk in a V6 Frontier, and this is Obstacle 3. This test features a tight turn, and here the teams get a Mahala stop and reverse as part of the deal. Then it's up a steep and sandy slope, through a gate, and through a last gate on a tricky side slope. Cue the arrival of our second all-girl team. This is Anne-Marie Engelbrecht and Vilna Heath, and the two ladies are in a Jeep Cherokee. The KJ does not have differential locks on the front or rear axles, nor does it have traction control, so the ladies have their work cut out here. Off they go. And oh dear, they don't get very far. Right, the ladies are lined up again for attempt number 2, but nope, the Jeep, she's not going up there. Here's attempt number 3, with a bit more momentum added to the deal, and the Jeep grinds to another halt. Oh crikey, she is not good. The ladies give up on this obstacle, and that's 0 points, unfortunately. Frank Engelbrecht and Machtel Dietlefs are in an Isuzu KB extended cab, and this bakkie does have a rear differential lock, and judging by the spring in his step, it looks as if Frank is a man with a plan. And yes, the plan is to put foot and get it up there, which he does brilliantly. He stops and reverses to get around that tight corner, which is Mahala, remember? And he gets through the final gate too, earning Frank a rather splendid 100 points. This is Obstacle 4, at the Leeuwenkloof 4x4 complex, and here are Frank Engelbrecht and Machtel Dietlefs in the extended cab again. Here the teams have to navigate their 4x4s around some trees and through a few narrow gates, and along the way there are a number of axle twisters too. Frank's effort here bags him 40 points. Not quite 100, but 40 points is 40 points. Hey, Frank? The next team are guests of the Isuzu clan, and Rian Bakker and Jan van Gerwe are in a Toyota Fortuner, and a white one nogal. They go about the obstacle in a calm and collected manner and score 75 points. Rian apparently also moonlights as a stand-up comedian.
We did some upgrades to it. We've tinted the windows. Now the market price has also doubled overnight.
On that note, back to an Isuzu we go. This is David Vollmer, who won this club event last year. Partnered by daughter Chantal, David gets cracking in his Frontier 280 DT. Although the Isuzu gets through the obstacle okay, it had touched 2 poles along the way, so that's just 50 points for the defending Isuzu champ. Obstacle 5 is a tough one, a really tough one. It's a steep climb up a rocky track, with those gates waiting in ambush along the way. Jaco Fulmer and Melvin Patton's put-foot method pays off, and they score 100 points. Gustav and Annelies Erasmus are next in another Isuzu Frontier. And they're off. And oh dear, Gustav almost takes out the cameraman there, as he grinds to a halt on a very wrong line.
Come on.
After reversing some with the help of the marshal and taking out a pole, the Erasmus I go for it again. And they make it up this time, scoring 65 points. This is the Isuzu SJ413, driven by Dani Tate and Vilma Farid. This Suzuki is powered by a 1.3 litre that makes about the same amount of horsepower as the vacuum cleaner in your house. So let's see how it goes. Dani clearly uses a more speedy approach, keeping the engine revs high, and he and Vilma bounce their way up the hill. And they made it. Vilma seems quite pleased about that. This is Suzuki Jimny crew Wimpy Olivier and Jaco van Sail. We're not quite sure what it is, but there seems to be something different about Wimpy and Jaco on this event. Maybe it's the fact that they're wearing long pants. Anyway, after nearly diving down the steep obstacle, the lads head back to tackle the obstacle in the Jimny. Hey Wimpy, the test isn't to see how fast you can get through the obstacle. Marshals scatter as the small Jimny with the big boys hurtle down the hill. But at least that's 100 points earned, the fast way. Ah, here's another Isuzu, and this extended cab is piloted by Christopher and Leanne Nowak. But oh no, despite a much calmer approach, the longer wheelbase bakkie takes out one pole on the way down, so that's only 75 points. Obstacle 7 is one the teams must tackle in reverse. They must thread their 4x4 between the poles and up a tricky rocky slope, gently nudging a pole. Nudge it too hard and you take out the pole behind it, losing all your points. So it's a delicate driving affair. These are off-road competition rookies Brendan Dunn and Matthew Jones in an Isuzu KB 350 V6. The crew had to be recovered from Obstacle 5 after the Isuzu landed up in a ditch. So let's see how they roll here. Oops, looks like he's forgotten his seatbelt and his window, and if the marshal notices, he'll get 0 for this obstacle. A few stalls and a pole later, the marshal blows his whistle. Seems like he's noticed the window, so Brendan is sent back down the hill with no points. He won't be doing that again. Christopher and Leanne Nowak are next to tackle this obstacle in their Isuzu KB. With Leanne waiting at the poles, Christopher does a good job of reversing the diesel KB through the obstacle. Now just for that last test. Yes, yes! Oh no, he just hit it too hard.
Leanne!
So how many points is that, Leanne?
Ek dink ons het 0. We'll have to see. 150. Not too bad.
And here's another Isuzu KB, and this one belongs to Ignis du Plessis, with Morne Suku in the passenger seat. The two lads seem to have a cunning plan in the making. Ignis makes excellent progress up the hill, and no, they also take out that second pole, but that's 75 points in the bank. Obstacle 8 is a long one, and as Jacob Besadenhout and Piet Brits in an Isuzu KB demonstrate, there are some tight turns to deal with. The Isuzu team scores 70 points at this obstacle. This is defending Bridgestone Club Challenge champion Danny Daniels, partnered on this event by Tienus Kortenhoven. Danny drives a bulky Jeep Grand Cherokee, so let's see how he handles this obstacle. Oh dear, but he's already hit one pole. Some communication problems between the co-driver and driver sees Danny hit two more poles, so that's just 25 points in the back pocket for the defending champ.
It went all right up to now. I didn't do too well here.
This is the penultimate obstacle of the event, and it's a long one. Here the teams have to take longer than 2 minutes to complete the obstacle. Yep, that's right, longer than 2 minutes. What complicates matters is a rocky climb in the obstacle, and 4x4s without lockers will have to use momentum to get up here. But then they also risk completing the obstacle way too fast. Enter the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon of Werner and Arno Skarp. With an extra low crawler gear and lockers for both diffs, this obstacle was kind of made for this Jeep. Up they go! And up they still go. But now, even Werner and Arno are bored stiff, as the Jeep idles slowly but surely up the hill, so they indulge in some self-entertainment, or something like that. And finally they're done. Thank the stars. So let's move on to something slightly more pacey. This is obstacle 10, and this is Sean Niemand, partnered by Dominique Chaluka. The obstacle starts off easily enough between some gates, and finally there's a little mud hole to deal with. If your name is Mr. Niemand, there are only 3 words when it comes to dealing with mud, and that's momentum, momentum, and momentum. Sean makes it through the mud, scaring our cameraman into a new blood group in the process. And our last customers for the event are fittingly in an Isuzu KB bakkie. This one is crewed by Gerard Duplessis and Dimitri Maletio. Dimitri seems to have his Club Challenge t-shirts a bit dear mekaar though. The Susie makes it through the first section with a few penalties behind its name. Now just that mud. And with a slightly more subtle approach, Gerard gets his bakkie through. But he did lose bags of points in the process. In fact, he lost all his points. So that's 0 for this obstacle. Anyway, time for some prizes. On this event, 3rd place also bags a hand winch, courtesy of Opposite Lock, while 2nd place wins a set of Opposite Lock driving lights. The winner of the event gets a R10,000 tyre voucher from main sponsor Bridgestone. Major prizes are up for grabs at the final in November. 2nd place overall wins a R20,000 gift voucher from Opposite Lock, and the overall winner will hook up a Conqueror camping trailer worth R50,000. And in 3rd place, Danny Daniels and Tienus Kortenhoeven in the big Jeep Grand Cherokee. 2nd place overall, despite a rather sedate experience on the skid pan, belonged to Isuzu crew Gareth Gonzalez and Peter van Niekerk in the V6 Frontier. And winning this event overall, but not qualifying for the final because they're not members of the Isuzu Off-Road Club, were Darnie Tate and Vilma Farie. And that's that. Next week, the 4x4 Community Forum members tackle each other on a really tough Heidelberg 4x4 trail. Till then, the 4x4 Club Challenge was brought to you by Bridgestone.